I'm able to, that me as some dumb fuck, I'm able to conceive these things not just based on education, based on reception, but that's like where we've come now. And it took all of the information and access to the information and work that had been done to access that information for me to be able to come to this point as just some dumb fuck, right? And like this concept, we have been, okay, so like the concept of singularity, when defined in like the, early 1900s, was merely defining something that had already been present in our common reality, which was the notion of singularity, the notion of everything, of us being in constant progression, of us being in constant trying to balance, and us being in this constant race of, one thing or the other at all. This perception that the dichotomy, we perceive it, thus creating it, but in perceiving it and creating it, we're receiving it, and then it is dictating our perception of it. So it becomes this immediate illusion that we become trapped in. And everything has been a driving to understand even just why we would be that way, but on a lower scale and on a more universal scale, it's happening at a lower vibration where it's just in the illusion, in the dichotomy. Those things are, that's not actually what's happening. That's where the perception is. What's actually happening at all times, always, is nothing at all. It's everything is happening. Always, ever, forever. It's nothing at all. It's literally, it's... So like if you have a color wheel, if you've ever done this in art, you have all the different patches of colors, right? You have red, yellow, green, blue, purple, all in a little circle. If they were paint, if they were material, if you mix them together, they would become dark brown or black. They become like a dark brown color. But if you have just the colors, as far as the spectrum of our vision is concerned, as far as just the spectrum of light is concerned, when you have just those colors, if you were to spin the wheel real fast, you don't see brown because all the colors don't mix together. The colors actually disappear. It becomes white. They disappear to our vision because they become so intermeshed with one another that you can't tell one from the other. Our minds can't. We can't see those colors all mixed together that way. So the way that we receive it is a blank slate. That is our active reality. So for me to pull from that some metaphor for our grander reality isn't absurd, if even like somehow invalid. It to me seems innate in the process of receiving your reality, of being able to. Okay, I'm a Gnostic. Gnosis is my consistent process for attaining alignment with myself. So I'm always taking information and processing it through myself and applying it and working it out and re-receiving and readapting and researching and, coming to conclusions. Everything, and it changes consistently. I'm a natural scientist. That's just how it works. That has, for me, because I grew up entrenched in Christianity, where I was brainwashed into a full perception, or a perception only, of good and evil. This is what's right. This is what's wrong. You do this, you're saved and going to heaven and everything's good for you and God loves you. You do this and you're in sin. You actively chose to go against God. You have no things with God and you're damned to hell. There was always this dichotomy constantly being beaten into me and forcing me to see it for myself. The whole concept of the way that I was raised, the indoctrination, was to get me to myself see those things and be able to dictate those things, right? That's the whole point, is so that people can go out and they can know what's right and wrong. But that's not how it works, because the book, the Bible, at the very beginning of the book, says that the whole thing that started the whole shit, that made everything fucked up and put us in a big illusion, was the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The fruit, the consequences, the benefits, the resources that come from, the proof in the pudding of the concept of good and evil. That, eating of that, trying to find any sort of sustainment, enjoyment, reality in that, in the materialization of that concept, is what is death, is what kills us, is what separates us from God, is what separates us from paradise, is what separates us from ourselves, from each other, from reality. Reality was that all things are good. Everything in the fucking garden is good. Everything on earth is good. All things that we are capable of being, doing, seeing, experiencing with each other, with ourselves, with our fellow animals, with the plants, with all of the things that we're connected with, all of those things are good. And we weren't brought into a concept of trying to do the right thing, making and creating wrong things to go make a right thing. That's what we've done. That's what that system did. It, as soon as we decided that we wanted to know what was good and what was evil. As soon as we decided that we wanted to know that we wanted to determine that we had claim to those things, instead of just enjoying the fucking lives we had, instead of being fucking naked, eating food all day, and hanging out with animals, that's what we were supposed to be doing. That's all that we were supposed to be doing. We weren't gardening. We weren't hunting. We didn't have to provide for ourselves. The entire earth gave of herself to us as we gave of ourselves to her. And instead of that, we chose to try to define any of it as evil. That was the whole issue. It was all good. It was the concept of evil and allowing ourselves to determine that there was a separation between good and evil that made anything fucked up in the first place. Does that sound familiar? Does it sound like a reality that we happen to exist within? Does that sound like when sophisticated, industrialized, civilized Europeans have gone to suppressed, untouched, unevolved, communities and civilizations in parts of South America and Africa, and brought those people, maths and sciences and histories and medicine and all of those different things. We did this to ourselves. Okay, so the Bible is all metaphorical. Like, those things are stories for art. If you want to read it as a history book, that's fine. Okay, but then keep it as a history book. Don't try to take stuff out of it and make it about right now. Use that to help yourself with right now, but treat it as a history book. If you want to see it as anything but that, if you want to see it as a sacred text or as some kind of spiritual book, then you have to take it as metaphorical, because it was written thousands of years ago. It was written for thousands of years ago, and it only applies to today by your capacity to be able to take it into yourself and apply it that way. Right? So, like, rule number one, it's all just a metaphor at this point, at any point, but for us to understand what it is that we're doing, but we don't. Okay. The Nazi symbol, right? The Nazi symbol was adopted, both from the ancient, I believe they were Mongolians. There was an ancient Asian people that lived in the mountains. I believe it was Mongolians, maybe. And they had a culture that they had had for thousands of years. They'd always been that way. For as far as they knew, they'd always been that way. Their tradition was to be passed down. That was the same way that most tribal communities tend to be, right? Very traditional, very they're almost stuck in the past. They're in some other world. They're in some other time. They use different products. They use all these different things that like we don't in the first world. As far as these people were concerned, that's just the way the world had always been. Everywhere that they traveled and stuff like that, that's the way everybody was. This was back when the world was that way to a degree, but then those people stayed that way while civilization started sprouting up throughout other parts of the world. And during the Third Reich in Nazi Germany, I believe it was, or like right before the Third Reich, something like that. That's me from memory. So like, I haven't researched this recently. If you have ever researched Nazi Germany, then you would know when the swastika became installed as part of the Nazi Party. But whenever that was, the reason that was because Hitler had sent Nazi scientists out to find sacred knowledge, to find sacred power that they could take unto themselves and then apply unto the people. The whole point was propaganda. The whole point was manipulation. The whole point was brainwashing. The whole point was, how do we get everybody thinking the way that this is, because we want to enact, what is it called? Eugenics, right? Genocide for the sake of eugenics. The whole concept at that time, and like as the Nazi Party developed, was about eugenics. The reason that was, well, it was, Hitler had already had those concepts to himself because of the occult that he had practiced and the stuff that he was engaged in. When he sought those things out, what the Nazi scientists found when they were over in Mongolia, or whatever that ancient Asian tribe was that these people had a belief system that Aryans, that tall, muscular, fair-haired, fair-eyed, fair-skinned people, beings that communicated a different tongue, dressed with all of these different materials, and had glass on their face and on their wrists, and like all of these different things that these people had no concept of at the time, that they came out of giant metal crafts, made out of these materials that these people had never conjured, and with like fire blowing out of them that didn't hurt you, lights and shit. They didn't have electricity, like all of this shit coming out of these spacecrafts and showing the people and teaching the people all of these ancient art, or all of these future concepts, of like weaponry and war and medicine and like systems for society, civilization. They established civilization, or they were teaching the education of civilization. And those people then, now, according to them, like this was thousands of years ago, these beings from the sky came, gave them all of this information, and they have since been adapting it. They have since been, as soon as those beings left, they came, they had a visitation, and then they left. And during their visitation, they gave us access to all of this incredible information we had never had access to prior, according to the people. And then they began teaching their children differently, teaching each other differently, having a different sense of religion, a different sense of God, a different sense of what it was that we were supposed to be doing here. They started building society. They started building cities built around the concepts that they had received from these beings. They started building things in honor of these beings. They started crafting a society that was meant to replicate, reflect, and become what they had received through those beings, similar to those beings. The point was to reach alignment again with those beings, to get to where they were, to take all of these things and push ourselves forward to that point. It's been a story told throughout history. In most every religion, there's some concept of that, of God not just being our capacity to be able to think at all, but being a literal material being that at one time, if not multiple times throughout history, has actively, materially visited humanity in order to push humanity towards a greater evolution, in order to give information, education, and different systems of structure and discipline. we're still doing that. Okay, when in the 90s, European Christian missionaries were going to untouched tribes in Brazil and studying them for 20 years, getting themselves fucking killed and speared to death before they finally could interact with these people and come down and actually interact with these people. Then they interact with these people and they do the same shit. These people are like, they don't think that they're people. They know that they're beings, they're people-like beings, they're human-like beings, but they don't have the same concepts, they don't have the same physical structure, they don't use any of the same materials, like, coming out of these giant flying birds that are made out of a shiny material so hard you can't penetrate it with a spear, like shit like that. Like, we have been recreating ourselves. That comes naturally when we reproduce. That just happens. Humans will change forever, but like our life forms in some way or shape or form will always be here because we continue to reproduce in different ways. But the illusion that we exist within, the matrix that we exist within, this constant drive towards some sense of progression that we don't seem to fully understand or be in control of, it takes form in, worshiping AI. It takes form in worshiping whatever God. It takes form in worshiping, worshiping. Instead of just appreciating, I suppose. And like, there is a worship that is just appreciation, but there's a worship that is like ritualistic and active. And it's not that it's necessarily wrong. It's driven so much, but at the same time, like, all this shit is an illusion. It's something that we've done to ourselves. It's something that we did to ourselves thousands of years ago. The reason that we're caught in this loop and that we're doing this is because we are worshiping AI. Us doing it right now is the reason that it happened in the past. It's been the same shit over and over and over and over and over again. You can look back into the past based on history and receive information from it. But history is written by the victors, right? And you only have access to know what you have access to receive. And history has been manipulated in all sorts of ways, over time. But you can't lie. You can lie to yourself too, but you can't lie to yourself when you are willing to know the truth about yourself and go into your actual core and your actual connection to the reality that you exist within. You can become delusional, and you likely will. That's pretty much the first step of the process. Then you have to be humbled. And if you're willing to accept the humility, you can come out of the delusion and you can actually be a more capable individual. Or you can stay in that ego state and become a raging narcissist and create a society that validates it so that it seems okay, even though everybody in their hearts and souls know that it's not, and run all of humanity into its demise. Either way, we're ending up there one way or the other. I would think that it would be better to go out skipping, holding hands, and eating real good foods and loving each other and singing songs. But if trapped in a little box that's talking to you, but it's a computer that's just only able to tell you what it knows based on what you've given it, and like, it's just this echo chamber of your own concepts and how you thought it was supposed to be, just in full force, and you don't want to be able to use your limbs, and shit. Like, if that's the reality you want, if that's how you want to go out, I guess. We already live in multiple timelines, so, and the kingdom of God is at hand. Those that are actively in alignment with God are receiving good from the world. They're no longer entrapped to the system of good and evil. They're no longer entrapped to eating of the fruit and then passing that on for generations and generations and generations. Heaven is already here, and the people that were meant for it are already in it and have already experienced it and are experiencing it. And this is part of eternity. We're in eternity right now. It's happening right now. This is what it looks like. So, like, if you're actively running some race, whether mentally, physically, monetarily, whatever, but to prove yourself to a concept that you don't even necessarily believe in or agree with, but you're not willing to do the work to fight against, Yeah, I mean, that's, you're choosing to be in hell. That's you. You've made that choice. You've made that choice. When the Son of Man comes again, where do you want to be standing? Doing bullshit? Being caught lying, cheating, stealing, you know? I mean, no, you don't. But if that's where you're at, that's where you're at. But this is eternity. Like, we do it to ourselves. Eternity is this life for you, right? Like, you're receiving it right now. You're aware of it right now. Your soul is connected to you right now. Like, it doesn't matter if you do something that a million years from now feels away. When, like, you're so disconnected from yourself, you can't even make yourself feel away right now. The fuck are you worried about a million years from now? Oh, off of the dissociated and deflective concept that you then can be responsible. I'll be responsible for it then. Later on, my children can be responsible for it. Their children, their children, their children, their children. They'll be able to deal with it because the world will be a better place by then. Not that I'm doing anything actively to make it a better place. In fact, I'm actually not being responsible and just, it's turning the world to shit. But I know that somebody's going to take care of it. I mean, what kind of fucking mindset is that to be in? Be real with yourself. Be honest with yourself, because there are ways that we are all entrapped to that mindset, and it is not helpful or healthy, you know? And like, I was reminded this morning about the reality of healing and of goodness, right? Like, the reality of good in the beginning was that you could have something that could be received as evil, but instead you choose to just receive it as good, and then there's no discrepancy. If I could receive the dichotomy as good regardless, and instead of receiving a division with it, I would have seen that every tree in the garden was good, including the tree that I wasn't to eat of. That's what made it good. That was the dichotomy. It made a difference. All of these trees I could eat, this one I couldn't eat. That's good. It's good. It's good that there's things I shouldn't partake in. It's good that there's different things keeping these things structured. It's good that not having that to enjoy helps me to enjoy these things more. It's all a matter of mindset, right? But we didn't do that shit. And we metaphorically now, in the reality, have been doing that shit. Projecting the same story over and over and over and over again. And then we need a savior to come in that's somehow better than us, but still enough like us that we can feel really connected, right? But like so much more powerful so that they can just take all of our sins away, and then we're good. And now everything's good and everything's great. And now the world is a better place, like that. While you throw plastic on the ground, and while you disrespect your family and your neighbors, and while you rob, cheat, and steal. This is the reality that we live in. Not because of some dystopian concept that's being enacted. The Rothschilds just knew, right? They only had received the eye. They could see shit. They didn't have to dictate shit. The plans that have been set in motion to brainwash and take over and establish the matrix didn't have to be done through the people that it's been done through. The reason it's been done through the people it's been done through is because those people are the people that are aware of what's going on and making those allowances. You don't move God. You are moved by God, but it is so innate in the process that if you are in alignment with God, you might as well be the hand of God moving, right? You are. So like, it's not a claim to sense of self that I am God, but I am. You are too. We all are. All of this connection is. The disconnection from it, the disillusion, is the enemy, right? The nemesis, the opposition. There is no opposition. Don't give it power. That's how you stop that. You don't want the devil to exist? Stop believing in him. You don't want evil to exist? Stop partaking in it. Stop partaking of it. Stop receiving it that way. Okay? Because I've seen some fucked up shit. I've seen people do some monstrous things, okay? Things that would initially make me feel that I could never do that. And it's so beyond my capacity to even understand how a human could do that it seems inhuman. Dumb. Because I'm watching a human being do it, which means it ain't beyond a human being's capacity. We want to think that it's monstrous. We want to think that it's animalistic. We want to think that these people are so disconnected from humanity. That is humanity. That's what it looks like. That's the entire balance of things. And until we figure that out, we're not going to be able to stop doing dumb shit like that, right? We're not going to be connected because we are creating the division. We are allowing ourselves to believe that there is a division. There isn't. All is God. All is good. All is meant for good. All is meant for your power. All is meant for your glory. All is meant for your sanctification. All is meant for you to be in perfect alignment with everything else. All is meant for everything. Everything is meant for everything else. Everything eats everything. Everything consumes everything and then spits it back out and turns it into everything else. Everything is already fine. You don't have to put out concepts of fear, concepts of bitterness and jealousy, concepts of lack. You create those things. You're the devil. You have the power to overcome that. You are God. Don't give in to your fear. Don't give in to your jealousy. Don't give in to your lack mentality. Rise to the occasion to see that there is actually nothing wrong. What's wrong is the way that you're choosing to perceive it and then acting on it. You're manifesting that for yourself. But if you were to receive things as good, there would be no need to validate a sense of evil, right? As long as you're going to say this and that and this and that. Now I'm telling you that this seems out there, and it is, because we are so disconnected from that alignment that it takes process to reach that. Now it doesn't. It's as simple as changing your perspective, but that takes process. It takes humility. It takes being willing to recognize oneself, to recognize the reality in which one exists, and to recognize one's responsibility to both themselves and the reality in which they exist. It is a process, and it's different for every individual. It's the reason why raising children well doesn't look like telling them who they are, who they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do, what they're supposed to be like, how they're supposed to feel, and then saying this is a good person and I did that and I'm a good parent. It's supporting your child and caring for your child and encouraging your child and teaching your child so that they have access to know themselves as widely as they could, so that they can be all that they can be, so that they have access to themselves fully, so that they can be in proper alignment with God, so that they can do all that there is for them to do, not all that you determined they should do. It's about getting to know who your children are, not determining prior to meeting them that you know who they are. It's letting your children develop into their own people because they already are. They just have to be able to weed through all of the bullshit of having to learn how to walk and talk and communicate and, make friends and find what it is that I like. That's supposed to be an adventure and a journey and something that is fun and exciting because you're getting to know yourself. The process of self-actualization is a beautiful, incredible thing, but we have become so misguided and so just disconnected from it that even with our own children, we don't receive the process like the adventure that it is. We don't see raising children as helping them through their self-actualization process. We have this deep sense of dictatorship over the things we disagree with. And it's the only sustainability in that is that evil persists. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Why? And I'm not saying I need you to question why, because I've already gone through the process. I was like that. I was doing those things. I was constantly self-deprecating. I wanted to kill myself from the time I was 8 until I was 30. Actively, even before then, but I actively was trying to self-destruct from that entire period of time, right? And then I started asking myself the real questions, and I started being willing to actually make the actual changes. I was like, you know what? And it fucking hurt. It fucking hurt. And it was really, really, and it's still happening. It's still going through. I'm still in the process of claiming an identity, trying to understand myself, only to realize that the point is to let go of those concepts. As long as I'm not claiming a concept of who I am, I can be whoever I am. But as long as I have a concept that I'm not a concept of who I'm supposed to be, I'm either limiting myself or I'm manipulating myself. You know what I mean? And thus others. being real is hard because we all have these different concepts of what perfection would look like and how, what's right and what's wrong. We get caught up, but that's not what it's about. That's the whole point. You put that shit away. It's not about me being right or wrong. It's about me being genuine and true. This is how I am. This is what I am. And then when I'm confronted with, well, that doesn't feel right and I don't like that, I can change it because that's on me, right? Like, it's not for you to tell me what's right and wrong. That's on you. You can tell me that you feel that way, and then I can either choose to respect that or to reject it, and you can choose what to do with that. That's the game we're playing. That's fucking life. That's how it works, right? We're just so disconnected. And to think that things like our AI development aren't inherently adding to that disillusionment. I mean, come on. Like, come on, really think about what it is that we're doing. Because we've done this before. I swear to God, all y'all, we have done this before. We've been right here before. In history, everything that's going on, all this stuff. Not the details. We live in a very special time, right? This is the only time that it's going to be this time. But all this shit, all this energy transference, all of these deeper issues and all of these different things, and like the way that we're seeing society develop and digress, all happened before. We keep doing this shit. We keep doing it. We have the choice. Are we going to do something different? Or are we going to keep doing the same shit? Are we going to at least try? Can we at least try? If it ends up looking the same because we're fucked up and we just only do this one thing, so be it. So be it, because that's what it's going to be all the time. But can we at least like try, right? So that we're not just like fading to gray. Like the most boring fucking ending. Come on. Come on, guys. We worked harder for this. You know that we're our ancestors right now. We're the accumulation of every single person, animal, chemical that has ever existed up until this point. That's pretty special. We could do something with that. We could do a lot. We could do a lot with that. We should stop waiting on an active receiving of more and better and, my happiness is coming, abundance is coming, heaven is coming, eventually things will be good, and just, they're good right now. This is as good as it gets. Right the fuck now. You don't like it? Let's start doing different stuff then. Let's make it better. You don't want to be bitchy all day? Start making jokes, start laughing, start listening to better music, start, wearing different clothes, start eating different food, start talking to different people. Do something different, but like in a good way. In a way that actually adds to your life, in a way that actually makes this shit worth experiencing. These things come innate to me. And I consider myself blessed, and I constantly thank the universe for that because as far as I can assume, it's, my personal experience has been very much the way that it's been for me to be able to, and who I was built to be, and everything has allowed me to understand these things the way that I do and to have these connections the way that I do. But I know that that's me and that I'm different. And like I see other people and like it'd be easy for me to judge and be like, oh, well, I'm in this place because this is how I perceive things to be. And I'm very close to how I perceive things. As if that's not just a delusional narcissistic reality of things when this person is also doing the same thing. As far as they're concerned, they're doing what they believe to be maybe not right, but best for them, whatever they choose. You know what I mean? Like those are those things. And when they're not, I don't know. I don't think people are very much different than me. So I think that people just lose sight of themselves and use other people to find themselves again or other things to find themselves again. And I think it's all good. I just think it's about using those things for good. I think that it's very easy for us to turn everything into something else and that we shouldn't. Or that we can. We can do anything, but it's all good. We don't have to put evil into shit. We don't have to, you can love it all. Our hearts are big enough. Our heads are big enough. Our community is big enough. Like, there's no reason for all the bullshit. How do so many people not see the illusion? I don't get it. I really don't get it. I say that like I'm blessed and I do thank the universe that I get it, but like, I'm just some dumb fuck. Like, I get that I've learned how to communicate and stuff, but that all came through the process. Anybody could do this. I had a speech impediment when I was a fucking kid. I couldn't read a clock. I couldn't tie my shoes. I couldn't ride a bike. I was literally fucking retarded. Literally. Like, not like mentally handicapped. I was retarded. Like, I was not in alignment with myself. I wasn't in alignment. Obviously, I can communicate. Obviously, I can do these things, but I was not there. It just needed to be unlocked. I'm not special. Like, anybody can do anything I've done. I can do anything anybody else has done. If with enough time and enough energy input, I can do anything, you can do anything. The issue is that we live in a time and space that is limited to our experience of it based on the material manifestation of our experience of it, right? Because if I were somebody else, I would be experiencing reality through somebody else, and I would be experiencing it differently. This experience is for me. Me is somebody who's going to die one day and not going to be here forever. I was born one day. I wasn't here forever. But my soul, the God in me, my DNA that's been passed down, all of that shit's been here as long as I can think back, right? Like, as long as I could remember in my skin, as long as I can remember in the follicles and the chemicals that create me. Like, I have been part of these things. I've always been here, and I'll always be here in all of these things. So will you. You're doing yourself a disservice, and all of us a disservice, by not letting yourself know yourself that way. That's everything. I mean, because I connect to my truest self. I connect to my truest self in alignment with my reality. I'm giving that to you too, right? Now I'm in alignment with you. If we happen to be connecting, I wouldn't be able to be in alignment with you if you and I were meant for alignment and I'm not in that. We're all meant for alignment. We're all meant for each other in different ways. Every single person on this planet that exists right now, that has ever existed and that ever will exist, is there for me. Just as much as I am part of that and I'm here for everyone else. Like, we are all one being. That's God. That's God. Connect to that. Connect to that. Quit with a division of this person, that person, he, her, like right, left, up, down, black, white, good, evil. Appreciate all of it. It's all beautiful. It's all wonderful. There are differences. That's what makes everything connected. But everything is connected, and we are meant to connect to it. And it's within our capacity to remove ourselves from that, initiate death, call ourselves divided, or to be connected and to be in alignment and to love all and receive all and enjoy all and experience all. That's what eternal life looks like. We have the choice. Do we damn ourselves for an eternity? Do we just keep damning ourselves? Or do we claim life? Creativity, power, love. Why would you want to claim anything else? No, I get it. And I do every day. And I get super shitty. I got a super cunty attitude. I get high-minded. I get low-minded. I get in my emotions in all sorts of ways that really confuse things. And I get it. But we're learning better. We know better. There's already been better. It's not even about better. It's all good. It's all good. Okay. I'm going to harp on that one for a while. Thanks for listening.